All right, good afternoon, everyone. How's everyone doing? Welcome to the Robotics and Autonomous Systems panel. My name is Grace Jean. I am here on behalf of Rear Admiral Kevin Smith, Program Executive Officer for Unmanned and Small Combatants, who was not able to travel out here today to be with you. So sending his regrets, he's pretty bummed out he couldn't do that, but we have a panel of experts up here to talk a little bit about what we're doing in the portfolio. So some of you have probably heard us present out on the East Coast. So actually, I was curious for a show of hands, who has not heard anybody from POUSC brief before? I'm just curious. All right, so we've got a contingent over here. Awesome. Great. Well, thank you. This is our first outing here at West, so we're very excited to be here supporting this event. So our portfolio is very broad. We do everything from littoral combat ships to frigate, but then we also have a vast amount of the portfolio focused on unmanned systems, and you see a lot of the experts up here today. So I'll go ahead and do a very quick intro. We've had a couple of substitutions, but the amount of expertise up here is no less. So we'll kick things off with Captain Lewis, who is our program manager for Unmanned Maritime Systems, PMS 406. And then we'll hand the mic off to Dr. Jared Conley, who supports the LCS Mission Modules Program Office under Captain Lehman. And he has some interesting things to share about the mission modules, but also some things that we're doing to support small USVs. After him, we have Mr. Mike Alpieri. He's the Deputy Program Manager for Expeditionary Missions, PMS 408. He's here in lieu of Captain Hawsey, who is not able to travel, but he's got some stuff to talk about in the underwater realm that they've been doing for quite some time, and some new things as well. And then finally, at the very end, we've got Captain Greg Mitchell. He is the program manager of our U.S. Navy Boats and Craft program. Lots of exciting stuff. And he'll talk a bit about what they're doing in the boats and craft realm and some new stuff. I guess actually it's not really that new because they've been doing it for a while in targets. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and hand the mic over to Captain Lewis. And if you could hold your questions until the end, we'll make sure you get your questions in. There are microphones set up. We just ask that you identify yourself and what organization you're representing, and we'll answer your questions. So with that, Captain Lewis.
All right. Thanks, Grace, for that. I'll say my hearing's a little messed up because I just came down with a cold this morning, so if you can't hear me, let me know. I know it's a microphone, but I'll work through that. And now my notes disappeared. So as I'm pulling my notes back up here, I'll give everyone just a brief perspective. I've been in the job as the program manager for about 6 months now. Before I came to the job, I understood that the Navy was pursuing and had a great interest in the unmanned systems. And when CNO Franchetti came out with her NAVPLAN in Project 33 and had operationalizing robotic and autonomous systems, I thought it was great to see that in there as direction from her to get after her North Stars of supporting potential conflict in 2027, and then also maintaining the strategic advantage for the Navy. So that was awesome, I'll say, to be new into the program office, to hear that and see the Navy's leadership embracing that. So I'm going to cover just a variety of things that my office manages. There's a wide spectrum of things. I'll try and hit the highlights here as we go through this. So my office deals with both surface and undersea domain, so that's always exciting, and I got to reprogram my brain to think if I'm talking about surface stuff or the undersea domain. One of the big things we have in the undersea domain is a program of extra large UUV named Orca. We call it Orca. As far as I know, it's the first diesel-electric UUV that has an unmatched payload in the world. It's been exciting, a long journey to get here. We did what our name for it is XLE-0, is a test vehicle. Last year, we went through a great deal of testing over the course of 2024 to test out the systems, to learn and roll those those results, that learning, into XLE-1, which is the first of 5 vehicles that are coming to the Navy starting early this year. With the XLE-0, as I mentioned, in 2024, it's gone over 1,266 hours powered in the seawater. It's traveled undersea up to nearly 300 miles. It's gone over 500 miles in autonomous mode, and the longest of those journeys has been about 150 nautical miles. Once we take delivery of XLE-0 here coming up early this year, 2025, we'll follow on with the Navy's developmental and operational testing. We call it DT and OT, through the third quarter of this year, of fiscal year 2025, after which we will turn that over to the Navy, and UUV RON 3 will complete their crew certifications. One of the things that as we go through this, as we learn in the RAS world, or the autonomous world, has been eye-opening for me and educational for sure, that these are system of systems. And so the group up here works on the acquisition side of it, of acquiring these systems, but holistically, we in the Navy need to look at the whole system of systems approach to that, and that is evident in Orca as well as all the other programs that I'll highlight today. Back in October of 24, the Navy competitively awarded the contract to General Dynamics Mission Systems to develop Medusa. Like every great Navy program, there's an acronym with that. So Medusa is a mining expendable delivery unmanned submarine assets. Medusa is much easier to say. So this is a tactical mining system utilizing an expendable unmanned underwater vehicle that can deploy from a submarine and deliver its payload. So as I mentioned, that was awarded at the end of fiscal year 24. And so we're in the early stages of that, developing that, and look forward to the progress that the GDMS team is going to make. As I mentioned, I also deal with some elements of the surface side. We have what we call the Overlord unmanned surface vehicles. There's 2 of those, as well as medium unmanned surface vehicles. Both 2 of those in Port Hueneme, 2 of those down here in San Diego, the medium-sized ones. They have been critical for us to learn, develop the USV RON's tactics, training procedures, and have been critical in how we educate and learn from USVs. In late 24, PMS 406, DARPA, and USV RON 1, in support of DARPA's NOMARS program, which is No Manning Required Ship program. The collective group recently completed a successful test of fueling at sea, which was designed, the system to use for NOMARS to be able to replace or refuel the USV at sea. So again, it constantly reinforces, we got to look at system of systems, all the things that our great sailors are doing, what things do we take for granted perhaps, and incorporating that into the unmanned systems. We at 406 look a lot at what we call integrated autonomous capabilities, and we key in on the integrated part, because if we look at just the systems of these, we gotta integrate all the other parts and pieces, the networks, the communication, the personnel, the support structure that come into this. And when you look at it holistically from tooth to tail, it becomes much more of a challenging problem beyond just the acquisition part of it. Some key pillars for the unmanned systems that we support: autonomy, comms, data, C2, networking, sensors, and then the integration is actually one of the key parts and one of the most challenging parts for the USVs and UUVs. PMS 406 also runs UMA, which is the Unmanned Maritime Autonomy Architecture. This is in partnership with industry to further evolve the definition of the functional framework. Provides a standardization through defining standard service interfaces and protocols. And so this is the intent of this with the UMA standardization, is to make it lower barrier to entry, be able to have greater outreach to industry partners that want to get into autonomy and be able to go after the best of breed autonomy and use that on the surface and subsurface domains. UMA 6.0 was released in 24, and we look forward to partnering with industry. We're making roads on having a co-lead industry Navy implementation of UMA standards moving forward. Also, we have ABL, which is the Autonomy Baseline Library. It's a repository of best-in-class autonomy components that adhere to the UMA standard. This is, I think, important for the investments that have been made in the Navy to be able to translate to other vehicles and capitalize on the investments for not just one system, but any system that can deploy ABL. We're collaborating with various partners to integrate the leading autonomy solutions and have employed them on small USVs that PMS 420 is acquiring. We also own CCS, which is a common control system. So this is the system that helps us control, deploy USVs and UUVs. It's been demonstrated and shared with international partners, and it's a great effort to see evolve and see how we can collaborate both across international partner lines as well as program office lines. We've been able to use it on multiple vehicles and show the value of the Navy's investment there. So I think some key takeaways here. One of the things that I won't speak for the rest of us, but is definitely in my swim lane or my office, is this continual drive to build a little, test a little, learn a lot. How do we make the unmanned world more agile? How do we respond to the Navy's needs? And I'll say not get mired in some of the processes. It's really, in my opinion, a new budding area, and so we're all working to make sure we capitalize on those and bring capabilities to the warfighters. And then last thing we'll say is foot stomp is the system of systems approach. We can all get mired with the cool technical pieces, elements, capabilities, and when we look at USVs, UUVs, we have to build the whole infrastructure, the training, to make sure we have the people. And I've seen a great amount of work, great success partnering with the fleet from an acquisition program office, learning through that, figuring out what we need to do, and make that whole system of systems approach come to life. And with that, Jared, I'll turn it over to you.
Hey, that's good. So Jared Conley here on behalf of Captain Matt Lehman and Admiral Smith, POUSC. I'm the principal APM for surface warfare, anti-submarine warfare, and next-gen mission modules. So I'll talk to you at large, and I'll get into the stuff that I really love, which are surface warfare, next-gen mission modules. So Captain Lehman is responsible for the mine countermeasures mission package, which includes a hunt package, a sweep package, and a neutralization suite. So you've got the airborne laser mine detection system, which is employed on an MH-60 Hilo. You've got the unmanned influence sweep system, which is towed from the MCM USV. I'll get into the MCM USV in a little bit, but essentially it's a 40-foot USV, very capable, and we've used it for a number of other missions as the system has evolved. It's the first USV that we fielded within the U.S. Navy. It's launched from Indy or Freedom, and is currently deployed in a number of theaters. The Surface Warfare Mission Package has three main mission modules. You've got the surface-to-surface mission module, the gun mission module, and the maritime security module. Surface-to-surface is 24 vertically integrated Longbow Hellfire, initially slated to go after surface-to-surface threats. We've learned over time that Longbow Hellfire missile is a very capable round, and we've used it as part of Jaded Thunder exercises and others to engage land-based targets and what you see going on in the world, the need to go after counter-air. So we've opened up that software, and we've been able to demonstrate the ability to leverage that surface-to-surface mission module for both land and air attack, right? So very capable mission module. We've employed it on Indy, Freedom, DDGs, and we've also taken it the step further and put it on like unmanned boats in a smaller form factor. The gun mission module kind of speaks for itself. 2 large guns on the aft of the ship, going after the counter FAC threat, so fast attack craft, incoming attack craft. Mission maritime support module includes things that people would use for search seizure. So guns, ribs, and that kind of thing, right? So if you need to get off board, you can leverage that maritime security module and use those systems to go and interdict, threats. We've seized cocaine, going after pirates. We've done like some pretty cool stuff with the maritime security module. So both SUW and MCM, those both mission packages have passed IOC. We're filled it. We're pretty much done building surface mission module. We've got 20 gun mission modules and 10 MCM mission packages. So things are rocking and rolling. Those are filled systems. Looking out into the future, we have what we call our next generation mission package. We're looking at a number of unmanned surface vessels for a number of missions. So working with the Marine Corps, we have the autonomous low-profile vessel, which is essentially a narco boat that's very close to the waterline that can carry payloads of various sorts and get them to the beach. We have ISR, unmanned surface vessels. So working with some of our friends down in 4th Fleet, we've deployed 10 Celadron Voyager to the Southcom AOR. A really interesting article is when the Russians were bringing the subs into Cuba, you had a picture of one of our Celadron Voyagers that we deployed in the shot, and it was tracking the sub into Cuba. So really good one I see you over there, Andy, good stuff. We're also looking out toward larger ISR boats. So when I'm thinking ISR, I'm thinking long dwell, boats that can stay on the water for 3-6 months, like 180 days, that kind of thing. Not something that can go out for interceptor missions. So historically, we like to pair our ISR capabilities with interceptor capabilities. So when I'm thinking interceptors, I'm thinking something that can go 40 plus knots, extended ranges, carry a variety of payloads. Captain Lewis has the large and the medium USV. Generally, we stick around 40 foot as the max and 16 foot as the minimum. That's what I define as a small USV that we use for interceptor missions. Working with our partners like Defense Innovation Unit, OUSD R&E, Naval X, we've gone out and have done a number of exercises. So as an example, working with OUSD R&E, we have foreign comparative tests, we have coalition warfare projects. Foreign comparative tests, as an example, has taken that 40-foot common unmanned surface vessel, which is essentially the commercial variant of the MCM USV produced by Textron, and have put 2.75-inch rockets on it. We've shot those rockets from everywhere from Anghang Proving Ground in South Korea to Rimpak in Hawaii. And we've gone 19 for 19 and have a complete closed-loop kill chain. So we put Aerosonde up in the air to provide targeting data, pass that data back to the ship. You'd have an operator on the ship that can then confirm a valid target, and that 2.75-inch rocket provides like a fire and forget capability using an IR seeker to engage those targets. One interesting point that we find working for foreign comparative tests is we can pull forward low-cost solutions that are mature and fielded by other countries. That 2.75-inch Poniard missile or rocket is fielded by South Korea and pointed at North Korea at all times, right? So it's been fielded since 2016 and was designed to counter LCACs coming over to South Korea. But we took it again and put it on an unmanned surface vessel and are engaging like small FAC-FIAC targets. Missiles like 20K compared to like some of the things you see that we produce. So low cost, options that can like accelerate and get us up in numbers quickly, right? So that's one thing that really excites me and I enjoy doing. The Coalition Warfare Project, that's more of a government-to-government exchange focused on qualification of systems. So Korea is an example. They do defense completely different, where their government is responsible for the R&D stroke, and they pass a TDP off to a prime to just manufacture. So when we think about qualification through weapon systems and explosive safety review boards or software safety review panels, that government-to-government exchange is required to get the data to qualify these systems for use in U.S. naval inventory. Another interesting thing that we did with RIMPAC with the Common Unmanned Surface Vessel is we integrated it onto a Korean LST. So really interesting first opportunity to do a well deck launch of a USV. The CNO actually flew out on an MH-60 and saw that launch of the 40-foot Common Unmanned Surface Vessel with 6 missiles loaded on it, right? Like a first off, a lot of attention, but pushing the envelope from an innovation standpoint. And that's the thing that kind of wakes me up. So I've talked to Long Dwell ISR. I've talked to a little bit around the interceptor missions that we can do. If you look at some of the work that we're doing with Task Force 59 or Task Force 66, you may have seen like the MARTAC boats launching UAVs. That's another thing that we see value in. Those UAVs can be mated with an ISR payload to get up and put eyes out, or you can put kinetic strike packages on them. Specifically in Task Force 59, we had a kinetic UAV launched from a MARTAC T-38 and engaged like a target. So you could kind of wrap your brain around the capabilities of these small USVs that essentially turn into work trucks that can carry a variety of payloads, EW, ISR, kinetic strike, you name it, right? Like we can pretty much use those systems to adapt. I think we're still in the early phases of adoption and we're still experimenting. So I'm confident a number of you have heard of the Advanced Procurement and Fielding of Innovative Tech, so APFIT. It's an OUSD strategy to get fairly mature systems over the finish line and in the hands of the fleet for experimentation. We haven't fielded any of those systems to date, but we are experimenting, working hand in hand with USV-RON 3 and likely future USV-RONs to be stood up at some future date. In terms of the integrated battle problems, I think Captain Lewis mentioned the deployment, or at least Admiral Kaler mentioned it this morning, the deployment of the medium, that was a medium USV, right, the larger. And we're working hand in hand with the integrated battle problems to push forward capability and to help realize some of Admiral Paparo's goals, right? So we've had, back when he was PAC Fleet, he came and saw us in San Diego. He's since fleeted up to Indo-PACOM, and he's keenly interested in some of the work that we're doing. In terms of the logistics mission, so we're leveraging 4022 authority, and we're trying to break the mold on traditional acquisition, DoD 5000, FAR-based contracting. We learned that it allows us to go very fast to get a prototype out. We set success criteria, and for systems that meet those success criteria, we have the opportunity to get, Secretary Gerton or whoever the next, I think it's Dr. Seidel at this point, and Acting ASN RDA, sign out a production memo, and we can go direct to production and sole source. So as opposed to your typical FAR-based contracting, we are leveraging extensively the 4022 authority to push forward capability and get it out in the hands of the users quickly without all of the typical FAR-based 5000, milestone B, milestone C, procedures that can last multiple years. So really keen on delivering capability at the speed of relevance, and I think we've been successful to date in getting after that. In terms of other evolutions that we've participated in, REPMUSE, where I mentioned like the South Korean effort that we did under the Foreign Comparative Test. We've also worked with the Canadians for the towable, reelable, active-passive sonar system. Mentioned CUSV is a very capable truck, and we're using that truck for a variety of missions, which include like ASW. In a past life, the LCS mission modules did include an ASW mission package. That mission has since been divested of due to ship noise, variety of issues. I think if the system had delivered on time, going back to typical DoD 5000, it may still be around, right? But lessons learned, and we're moving forward and looking at ways to repackage and employ systems that provide value to the fleet. One other thing that I'll mention before we get off stage, Captain Lewis mentioned the autonomy baseline and CCS. We are looking at those systems in addition to some of the integrated enablers that Admiral Ocano mentioned earlier to put navigation and mission autonomy on our systems. So we're working very closely with this team to mature the rules of the road and the autonomous behaviors needed to satisfy today's mission and future missions. We're doing that on the East Coast. We're also doing it on the West Coast as part of the Robotic Autonomous Proving Ground, RPG. I think you may have heard DIU and NAVPLAN mention that a little bit earlier. So working hand in hand with Admiral Smith and Admiral Ocano to find that happy medium and deliver quality capability that meets the needs of the sailors. I think that's about my time. I'm generally I like the back and forward, so I struggle just speaking for 10 minutes straight. So hopefully we get some good questions and can keep the dialogue flowing. But that's all I got, and I'll hand over.
Afternoon, I'm Mike L. Perry. I'm the Deputy Program Manager in the Expeditionary Missions Program Office. To kind of set the stage for our office, we have an extremely broad portfolio. We have over 60 individual programs. We manage over 70 FMS cases, so we're spread across a number of Navy areas. Captain Hossey and I, especially Captain Hossey, are really early adopters of AI technology, and we're embracing that. We kind of bend it into 3 different areas that we're trying to push it across our portfolio. The first is to get the AI in the product. So we have a Mark 18 UUV program. They're out there right now operating. We've put some automatic target recognition, some autonomous behaviors. We're using AI ML to be able to help us identify targets, be able to rapidly turn around software improvements and deliver it to the fleet. We're using it also in another program we have. It's a JCTD program with OSD and ONR doing a rapid area detection effort. And so we're using AI ML to be able to identify in airfields and other areas, to be able to identify ordinances, identify those, target those, and be able to render safe those things. So those are a couple of examples of how we're really pushing AI into our products. The other thing is AI around our products. So we're leveraging user manuals, we're leveraging our EOD publications efforts to be able to use some AI ML tools to be able to have the user be able to more easily interact with all of our database of things. So instead of having to look through pages and pages of a Navy system training plan on how to do something, we've got a system that will automatically talk to the sailor and walk them through different training procedures and manuals. And the same thing for publications. We've got thousands of publications, and so we want the user and the warfighter out there in the field to be able to take a picture of an ordnance, use the tools to identify it, use the tools to be able to walk them through how to render safe the effort. So we see a lot of areas across our portfolio that we can take advantage of these tools. And then we also want to use AI to help the workforce. Everybody gets data calls from their bosses, the Pentagon, all over the place. So we're using some Power BI tools in the financial area to be able to pull from various Navy systems the data and be able to present it back to the people who are asking for these data calls, and not have our BFMs have to manually look up information, manually transmit it to another format that somebody has, because everybody wants the data in a different format. So we're trying to figure out how we can leverage these tools to be able to make it easier for the workforce to respond to these data calls and then have more time to execute their acquisition programs. Our portfolio is really big, so I won't be able to hit on everything, but another big area that we've got is our underwater EOD portfolio. As I mentioned, the Mark 18 program, we've got a Mark 18 Mod 1 and 2. It's been out in the fleet for over 10 years. It's been the most successful UUV program the Navy's seen. We have over 200 vehicles out operating, supporting the fleet. We've logged over 15,000 hours of operational data. So it's a really successful program, but it's starting to age. So we're reaching the end of life of a 10-year program, and so now we're working on new UUVs. So we have a lionfish UUV, and we have the viperfish program going on, which is a joint effort between our office and 406. So we're getting ready to, hopefully deliver these new UUVs to replace the aging UUVs we have out in the fleet. Additionally, we have a bunch of ROV programs. We have these remotely operated vehicles that try to identify mines on the bottom or in the surface column, and we end up being able to identify those mines. We're able to put an explosive charge on them and get rid of them. But that's all done through tethered technology now. We're looking in the future to get rid of the tether, put autonomy in these vehicles, and be able to have them operate on their own. And since we're in San Diego, I'll mention that we also have the marine mammal program. So we have our dolphins and sea lions who also still support the Navy in doing exercises. I mentioned lionfish, and that was a really successful program when we started to put together an acquisition plan for that. We actually worked with DIU. We went out with another transaction authority. We went through that acquisition process for their efforts. We down selected to 2 vendors. They made us prototype vehicles. Both prototype vehicles were tested in water. We invited the fleet to actually participate in those tests. So we got some great feedback from the fleet. Both programs were successful. They got a completion memo from DIU, and you heard that allows us to be able to go directly to a FAR-based production contract. And so with the fleet input and the results we had, we picked a lionfish vendor, HII, and we estimate that we saved close to 2 years in the acquisition process. And so it's a huge success. We've already built production representative vehicles. They're out there being tested. We've awarded a production contract, and this is going to be the new lightweight UUV 2-man portable for the Navy. So really excited about what this is going to bring to the Navy, and we're going to meet some of the timelines of getting more players on the field that we've heard from our Navy leadership. Another big effort we have is our rapid area detection. I mentioned that. So this is to be able to clear things like airfields, forward operating bases, ports, harbors, any area where it may have been mined or ordnance may have been dropped on it, and we need to rapidly try to clear that. And so we're using AI technology with drones to be able to rapidly fly over an area, identify these mines, and be able to render safe them all at once. It's a really exciting program. The JCTD is in its 3rd year, so we're going to transition that technology into a program of record that we can deliver for the Navy. Another big area we're looking to leverage technology is in our joint publications and procedures. The Navy is the lead for publications for all the services. We have thousands and thousands and thousands of render-safe procedures that we maintain. It's a laborious process where you have to get a munition, you x-ray it, you have to render safe the munition, you have to do a lot of photography, then you have to do a lot of documentation in these procedures. You have to test that you can render safe the munition. So there's a lot of data that supports the warfighter out in the field to be able to do his mission. And what we're looking to do is be able to leverage some of these AI tools to be able to have it be interactive and have the warfighter out in the field be able to take a picture or talk interactively through the pubs and not have to look through pages and pages to find out the exact place that they need to render safe this munition. So got a lot of positive feedback on the fleet of how we're automating this procedure for the future. The last area I'll talk about is our non-kinetic EW systems. So for the Navy, we have our crew systems that do both counter IED and counter UAS. It's been a huge success. They're software-defined radios. The Navy acquired all the rights for the software and the hardware. So as the threat has evolved over time, we're able to take any third-party information that can solve a unique threat that we have, get it into our system, and rapidly field it. Twice a year, we have a joint meeting with all the services to bring in all their experts, and we share threat information across all the programs. We share libraries, and it's a great way that we can leverage commonality across the services so we don't invent it twice or three times across other services. We're looking to the future. The Joint Counter UAS Office has asked us to look at a third generation architecture, which all the services could share, not necessarily a new box, but new cards and architecture that will fit in different boxes, because we all invested a lot of money in boxes out there that are in the fleet being used today. So the simplest way to get commonality is try to find this new architecture that we could all adopt so we can all be on the same page, sharing techniques and threats and more rapidly getting these techniques out to the warfighter. So we've got a new family of systems we're looking at. We've fielded what we're calling 2.0 already. The big thing was getting on the new Truman carrier strike group that went out earlier this year. We put a new tablet that's not connected to the system that allows them better visibility to see the operating picture. The early feedback is they love it. They never want to see the old system again. So we're working with the resource sponsor to accelerate procurement to get all those tablets out to the fleet, because we got such a great response back from that. So a lot of work going on in our office. Additionally, I am chairman of a NATO subgroup that does counter IED and counter UAS. And so we get to leverage the ability to talk to all these NATO countries about what US systems we have, and that's led to them procuring FMS systems from us. So anytime we get extra FMS, it helps reduce the cost of our systems. And we're excited to partner with other NATO nations, and we've seen a big pull for our capability, and we continue to look to support the international warfighter and our coalition partners. So that wraps up my talk. Thank you, and I'll be around for questions or hang out afterwards if you want to touch base on anything. Over to you, Captain.
All right, thank you. My name is Captain Greg Mitchell. I'm the program manager for PMS 300. 300 is a relatively new program office. It was part of 325, and then they spun it out a few years ago, and with it came a diverse group of projects, about 167 different projects spread out across 24 shipyards, and of those, about 13 of them are programs or could qualify as a program. Other notable things is we've delivered 210 boats to the fleet and our partners in the last year. So we're definitely pushing product through our contracts and looking for opportunities in other places. Just for the way that the way our products are divided up is we have three different main focal points. One is our F group, which is for military sales. That's probably the bulk of the individual smaller projects, but it does include a lot of similar work that we do in our G group, which is our combat craft and force protection boats, security boats. Those two organizations happen to be very inclusive of each other, use very similar yards and very similar hull designs and product lines to our both customers from the U.S. Navy and our foreign military sales partners. Equally important is our T group, which covers the test and targets and service craft. Service craft are things like berthing barges, so that ties into the quality of service initiatives by the CNO to take care of our sailors. Also, we have floating dry docks and barges and tugs and just about anything else that the Navy buys to operate in waterborne conditions that doesn't fall into a more traditional program office. And an interesting part of the T group, we also have something with our test and targets. And our targets group is probably most relevant to today's panel. They build HMSTs, towed targets, all kinds of different profiles that the fleet needs to simulate and practice and test different warfare methods or different weapon systems. We also have a lab that's tied with our targets group to help develop these different profiles. And the lab is good at prototyping things like ordnance. You know, we've installed different types of ordnance or had different types of detonations on the different craft. We also do UAS launching capability off of these craft in order to simulate different profiles or different types of threats. And long-range remote operations on the order of thousands of miles for C2. And any other type of profile or new warfare angle that maybe we want to simulate. The targets group is, you know, these are very cheap targets. We've delivered over 200 in the last year between towed and self-powered, and we are able to augment them pretty quick with our own resources in our lab to fit just about any user's needs. I think, so those are all the prepared marks that I have, but I'd like to go ahead and turn it over to Matt if you want to conduct the panel.
So we'll open up the microphone for some questions, and while you queue up there, I just wanted to close out kind of the opening remarks for the panel that Admiral Smith is really keen on supporting CNO with the NAVPLAN. He's really encouraged all the programs to collaborate. We see a lot of cross-pollination between all of these program offices now, including Captain Mitchell's office, who, you know, when they're relatively new to our PEO, and you know they have a lot of boats and craft, and I think we found out that there are maybe some new opportunities there to roll them into the RAS effort as well. So with that, don't be shy. I think we're eager to take a few questions, and as Jared said, he does better in a dialogue rather than remarks. So if you have any questions, please step up to the microphone and let us know who you are, who you represent, and we'll get that rolling. So thank you.
Hi there. Can you hear me? Okay. Hi, I'm trying to lower this a little bit. I'm Maya Cook. I'm from Pacific Science and Engineering, and thank you all for your comments and everything that you're doing to advance the state of unmanned systems. I had a question. I'm interested in your thoughts on the warfighter element in robotic and autonomous systems. So the robotic warfare specialist rating is obviously a really important step in growing the skills and the robotics warfare community, but I'm just curious to know your thoughts on how to stay out ahead of what are the skills that our future operators are going to need in using autonomy and robotic systems, especially with the rapid evolution of the technology. We need to stay out ahead and try to figure out what those skills and needs are going to be. So I was just curious if you had any thoughts on how to keep that future focus and make sure that our warfighters are trained and ready to use the future systems.
Hey, so good to see you. Great question. So working very closely with ServPack to establish the .mil.pf framework. and ensure sailors are properly trained. So right now we've got a training course happening over at Point Loma for some of our small USVs happening now, right, for RON 3 sailors. I think, caring for a boat is one thing, and I think PMS 300 has talked eloquently to, and I think we've been caring for ribs for a very long time. But as we begin to add and continue to add additional capability on the systems, the ability to maintain software and troubleshoot software becomes even more important. So I think we are focusing in on not only the HM&E, but also being able to maintain and keep software up and running, and comms and C2.
And I'll say from the EOD perspective, we use a lot of robots and to go downfield to, identify and disarm and do different EOD missions. And so, we're really getting the EOD folks to be able to be trained up on operating these robots. And we're trying to utilize a lot of technology because the human hand is a lot different than a couple of robot claws. And so we're working with, people like John Hopkins and other folks to get more feeling in our sensors so that they can really successfully do the mission that sometimes now these mechanical claws are a little clunky.
Hello, Priscilla Prem with Pittsburgh Coastal Energy. My question is about powering these unmanned underwater vehicles, specifically the small and medium-sized ones. I'm wondering if you believe that we're meeting those power requirements effectively, and also if there's any risk involved with the current refueling methods, and if there's any strategies going forward with how to address those risks.
What was the last part of the question? I didn't catch it.
If there's any risks involved with the refueling methods we're currently using, and if there's strategies involved that we're looking into to mitigate those.
So I think if you got any great ideas of how to solve mobile power, I'd love to hear them. Right now, lithium batteries is I think the key. Our challenge is how do you we've all seen the evolution, I think, of lithium batteries and safety and flying out here, batteries on the plane, etc. So how do we get the power density and the capacity to do that and then have the safety employed is from a battery perspective one of our challenges. We haven't at this point, I think, delved into too much kind of new and ingenious sort of ideas. And part of that is probably complexity of trying to put that on a mobile system. But you asked about the small and medium size. Lithium batteries is really our current go-to power source, and then the challenge is making sure that it's safe for the sailors wherever or however they're employed.
Thank you.
Hey, gentlemen, thank you for your time. I work for a small USV manufacturing company. We build these USVs for the geophysical survey and mapping industry, doing applications like obviously C4 mapping, but route surveys, telecommunications cables, and pipeline inspection. I kind of see a crossover, and I'm wondering what's the Navy doing as far as investigating commercial products for these defense applications?
Yeah, so I'll take it. So the commercial solutions offering process is something that we are paying very closely to. So commercial solutions offering essentially looks for, we'll issue an area of interest statement. You could respond to that area of interest statement. And the commercial element of that is very important to us. Depending on what we see in your response to the area of interest statement, we can do like in-person pitches and work to get, like if you are deemed, you pass a cut line, we can issue a prototype OT and get into a prototype contract to mature like those commercial technologies and ideally get them in the hands of the sailor if successful coming out of the prototype OT phase.
Okay, great. Can I get that information from you afterward?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Hello, Mark Shanks. I work for Metron. I have a question about the autonomy baseline library and just understanding, over the past couple of decades of, different companies and different labs developing autonomy behaviors and really kind of amassing that capability. And I love the fact that we're consolidating it into a baseline library that everybody can pull into. But I wanted to get your opinion on what this looks like moving forward, specifically in terms of acquisition and, to your point, sustaining software out in the fleet for years to come. How do you envision that kind of evolving, and how do companies contribute to that baseline library in like modular form or complete integrated solutions with platforms?
So I think we're still in the nascent stages of really getting this nailed down with the ABL. The UMA is part of it, right? Because that will make the standardization, commonality in autonomy will help us with that standard interface. I think we have work to do how we partner with industry to incentivize and get that behavior that we can really get the best of the best for the software and maintain that and be able to use that with any platform, right? So we have some work to do. We also have, I think, as we get more unmanned systems, we will be able to employ ABL in more areas, and so there's a inertia that we need to get over to have enough systems, have an ABL employed in enough ways that we can make it really a common library that applies to numerous systems. So that is our struggle at the moment, but I think we're making headways with that. We've done some demonstrations. We're putting ABL onto one of our MUSVs out in San Diego here, and so we'll be able to test that, employ that. And I'm not a software person. I've been told, right, someone told me that autonomy is easy. People can tell me if that's wrong or not, but they said really the hard part is getting all the sensor data and being able to exchange the sensors and incorporate the new sensors, and what are you trying to do? And so we've seen it where companies, they may be able to do the UUV or USV or some application there. They don't need or want to necessarily partner with someone else to go after the autonomy. And so if we have a government-managed autonomy baseline, we think that it opens up the aperture to bring people into the industry and support.
I agree.
I would just add that Admiral Kaler mentioned this morning all-domain attritable systems. I think USVs are one piece of the pie, but you also have UAVs and UUVs that also play a role. And I think the Advanced Collaborative Teaming Act, initiative that's going on right now at RPG under that integrated enablers framework is looking to get after that. And I think having ABL as a common framework to manage across the portfolio is a key if we want all domains to communicate and work together. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, any other questions? Don't be shy, step up to the mic.
Ryan Hayes with Deloitte Consulting, and just retired from the Navy. Just if you could talk a little bit about the coordination of our acquisition side with the Warfare Development Centers as we're evolving the CONOPS of how we're going to employ these systems, so we can get that feedback back to industry on getting the design, especially around command and control.
Yeah, I'll start off. So I look at it as sort of a triangle between OPNAV, the Secretariat, and the acquisition community with the fleet at the center of it. And we're working again with Surf Forces, SurfPac, to make sure that the .mil PF framework is established and we have that feedback mechanism well baked. So as we learn things, work with RON 3 or other groups, Task Force 66, Task Force 59, we can roll that into what training looks like, potentially what that ultimate solution looks like, and try to work at the speed of relevance where if we see something's not working, if the sailors are struggling with a particular component, in the way we've been doing business lately, we can put a rapid ECP in and make the changes. If it's documentation or training, I think the paperwork is easy, but if we have to change a material solution, that becomes a bigger challenge. But I think working within that triangle with the fleet at the center of it, and opening the doors via stakeholder engagements up and down echelon is critical to getting the best product out in time.
I would also add that naturally there's tension amongst that, right? Because most of the sailors were used to give us a final product, and so there's a lot of learning and adjustments that people and tension that people will be put in, right? And I think we've so far we've worked well with the fleet stakeholders of as I'll call it a quote product is being developed and we're working the TTPs in parallel. We understand that they're going to evolve as we evolve the product and we evolve how we might employ them and all the things that we learn. And so that sort of evolution is a little different than we operate sometimes, or especially with established programs or systems. And so there's tension there, but I think everybody is dealing with it well and pushing the envelope to learn from it and incorporate all the feedback.
Thanks.
Actually, I'd like to follow up too, real quick on that question. So we have a couple test platforms that we use at one of our warfare centers that for the small boat side, and we get a lot of feedback from our combat craft commands. And if there's any products out there that you want to maybe get in front of them, we have some test platforms that we allow them to take a look at out there in Little Creek area. So I'm certainly open to anything like that. But then on the other side of it is with the targets group, we do a lot of prototyping from what our fleet users see as threats, and then we try to model it and maybe simulate these different things. So there is stuff emerging out of that, and sometimes we have RFIs that come out, or other forums like this is where we really engage with industry to see where those opportunities might be. But certainly getting your stuff on one of our platforms, if there's something you want to demonstrate, is probably a good starting point to build interest with the fleet side.
All right, last call for questions.
I'll try not to make this too hard or too long, but Andrew Hertel from the Sail Drone. Good to see a couple of old friends there. Hey, considering what you see unmanned systems are going to be used for in the future, and the line between, kinetics and maritime domain awareness missions, that sort of thing, how much of a place do you see a COCO models, contractor-owned, contractor-operated, compared to government-owned, government-operated? Where's the line, and is there a place for both?
Yeah, so I'll take that. So how I break it up in my mind are, dull, dirty, and dangerous missions, where your dull missions are perfectly suited for contractor-owned, contractor-operated systems, whereas your technology evolves, we can exercise a new CLIN to bring on the latest and greatest system that we don't own. I view that as we're just paying for data as opposed to us paying for the system. I think in the dirty model, I look at that as more government-owned, contractor-operated, where if there's a risk that you or any other system provider could lose a system, like if we're asking you to operate in a more contested environment, I see us taking on the risk of the loss of the asset with you all operating. And for more dangerous missions, I see those as government-owned, government-operated, right? For a number of reasons. So I do think, there's a place where, there's a place for contractor-owned, contractor-operated. There's a place for government-owned, contractor-operated, and there's a place for government-owned, government-operated systems. Thanks.
I think that does it. So thank you very much for your questions and your time and attention, and have a good rest of the show. Appreciate it.